Well, we went in together, and we went into the Army unassigned. Well, we could pick either our location or our job, and we both picked Europe. So we were kind of at the mercy of whatever they chose to train us in.
And we were told that they would probably look at your test scores and choose something based on how well you did on test scores.
Right,
correct?
right. And I was going to school for court reporting, so the assumption was I'd be put into possibly a court reporting job at the time. So,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen.
So we went to basic training together.
Right.
And from there, we got sent to different places for training because the Army chose what we were going to be trained in.
Yeah.
So you want to go?
Well, we were in the Women's Army Corps at the time when we went in, and then when we were in basic, it was kind of, we were told that it was ending. I'm not sure, I think it ended a couple years later, but we were told we were one of the last people to be trained as women in the Army. We actually went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Most women were going to Fort McClellan, Alabama, and we were trained alongside with men, basically. We were trained separately, but we were in the same area as men being trained. So
yeah, we had separate barracks and that,
yeah.
but yeah.
So we had fatigues, and we had the boots. And
The men's fatigues, the men's
yeah.
boots.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I never wore boots in basic training because they didn't have the size. So I had low quarters, which are the dress shoes that the
Right.
women are issued, and I think I wore out the first pair
Right.
before basic training ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those situations where you got there and you kind of waited because they were kind of backlogged and they didn't have enough equipment for us or enough uniforms, and so we were in a waiting status until we could start basic. I
Yeah.
think that was at least 4 weeks. It seemed like forever. but it was, yeah.
No, it wasn't
Yeah, it
quite
wasn't
that
that
long.
long. Okay.
No.
So once we got assigned, I was assigned to be a recovery evacuation specialist. I was sent to Aberdeen Proving Ground. I was with 2 other women. We were the first 3 women ever to be in that MOS, and we always felt it was kind of because of women's lib at the time. So we got called in at our first weekend, and our first sergeant basically yelled at us for an hour because the men's smallest equipment didn't fit us, and none of us met the physical requirements for the job. So he said, "Can anyone type?" And my hand went up. I could type. I'd been going to court reporting school. And he said, "Well, we're going to send you to 1 day of training, and then we're going to pull you, and you're going to be our company clerk because we need a company clerk in the ordnance school." And so I worked, I don't know, I think 4 months. And then I was guaranteed to go to Europe. And he said, "You really don't want to go over there. They really play war games." So he went to the Department of the Army for me. And I remember thinking at the time, oh dear, you know, what have I asked for here? I could be sent to some really awful places in the United States or around the world. But I was assigned to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center in Denver. And I went there. I worked for the Military Police Detachment, and I was the company clerk. So.
Okay, and then after basic training, I got sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I was to go through unit supply and armor training. And I think in my class there were 2 other women, and I believe they got out of it too, but I'm not sure who asked me, but the only way they could get me out of it was to say I was failing the class, which I was not. So I got reassigned to go to Fort Lee, Virginia for unit supply and armor, and went through that training, and it wasn't anything difficult. I do remember we had to be able to take apart 5 weapons and put them back together and be able to tell the cycle of fire or something, whatever it's called. Yeah, and so then after being trained, I did go to Europe. I didn't waiver my guarantee, so I went to Europe and got to the Stuttgart area and was assigned at the 7th Engineer Battalion. Or no, excuse me, 7th Engineer Brigade. They did not need a unit supply and armor, so they said, "Can you type?" Well, I had been going to secretarial school at Madison Business College, so yes, I could type, and I had to take a typing test, and they awarded me the MOS of clerk typist. So I ended up being a clerk typist in the S2 shop at the 7th Engineer Brigade for the rest of my assignment over there. And it just was, so yes, I was trained, but did the Army use that training? No.
So she got the training that I didn't get. I always kind of kid about that.
Oh, what?
Well, you went to 2 different trainings.
Yeah,
I didn't get any, so
you're right.
it evened out, you know.
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting because when I was in Colorado, my first sergeant lobbied they needed a supply person. They needed her specialty. And
Because after I went to school, I went to visit Jeanne
Yeah.
at Fifth Army Medical
Army Medical
Center.
Fifth
Yeah,
Army Medical
yeah,
Center.
yeah, the medical center there, and they went to Congress, I think, or no, they went to the Department of the Army, and they said, no,
she's really needed over in Europe.
you're
and,
going to
yeah,
Germany.
Germany,
Yeah.
yeah. And then she got over there and they didn't need her
Yeah.
at all. So it was all kind of comical, but I don't know. It's interesting because I work for the university, and people always say how organized I am, and it must be because of my military training. And I said, well, gee, really, when you're in the military, your most important things are your boots polished, is your brass polished, is your hat on when you leave, is your hat off when you come in, did you salute, anything that looked like an officer. And I said, you have to really put aside any kind of logical, analytical thinking and just do what they tell you. So I said, I really don't think I used that skill when I was in the military.
No.
So it's kind of funny.
So how did you find out about that?
Well, I have well, she has since passed away, but about 2 years ago, a friend of mine who was in the military, she went into the Army after I did. And I met her at a job, because I worked at Fort McCoy for many years. And she went on the, it wasn't Badger Honor Flight, but the Freedom Honor Flight out of La Crosse. And she came back and just was overwhelmed. And just so, it's just like, Sharon, you've got to go. It was just great. And she was really glad she went. So I thought, okay. And then I said something to Jeanne, and she said, well, let's go out of Madison to Badger Honor Flight. So we put in the paperwork together to go, to see if we could go together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had always wanted to take our dad. He was a World War II veteran, and he was too ill, like the last 3 years of his life. He was in a nursing home. And so I was kind of his date for the Edgewood High School reunions that they'd have every year, and I kind of got to talk to the World War II veterans, and they said it was really interesting. 1 week they were in high school, and then the next week they were in the military. And some of them, it just depended on when you went in. Our dad served stateside, but someone who went a week after him ended up at Battle of the Bulge. So just hearing their stories, there was, I think I saw it on the news, there were 3 or 4 of his classmates who had served together, and they were coming back from the Badger Honor Flight. And I said, we have to go, because our dad couldn't be there for them, and I'd just seen them at this Edgewood reunion. So we went, and I remember we saw him in the line. There were tears in his eyes. He said, I never got this kind of welcome when I came home from World War II. And he asked if our dad was there, and I said, no, we're here for our dad. So we had learned that also there's something called, I think, Fallen Heroes, which we've talked with your people. Brian said that we could bring a picture of our dad, and we could have our picture taken in front of the World War II memorial. So that's kind of why I want to go.
Have you guys been to DC before?
We went with our parents when we were kids. Yeah, our dad was really big on all the memorials and the battlegrounds, all out east.
So at that time, we only saw Arlington Cemetery. And
right.
there weren't the memorials that there are now.
No,
but,
no. I've been back since. I've seen the Vietnam Memorial. I'd worn a bracelet, a POW bracelet, when I was in high school for Richard Fisher. He was a veteran from Wisconsin. So I found his name, and he's still missing in action, so I did the scribing of his name. So, and you've been there, I think.
Yeah, I had a chance to go working for the Army at Fort McCoy. I was sent TDY. And so the lady I went with, we made sure we got to see. So I have seen the World War II one, that was like the latest one. But it is interesting, and it's like overwhelming. You just know the honor and every time I saw the honor guard at any military function that I had to attend, it just really, it moves me. So I do enjoy that, seeing the stuff.
And to me, I've never seen the World War II one, but the one that haunts me is the Korean one, because the statues are life-size, and you can just see it on their faces.
Yeah.
And the same with the Vietnam one. As you walk down and the wall gets taller, you keep going, and the list of names.
The list of names is
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Will you get 5 seconds out of that? That's good. I don't know.
Were we coherent?
Yeah.